Hey guys, it's Mike here, and recently on my channel, I talked about what I consider to be the best transformation in the Dragon Ball franchise, which you could check out in the card in the top right corner or on my channel, and probably in the end screen of this video. Now in this video, I want to flip it on its head and kind of take the other side of the coin into consideration and discuss what I consider to be the worst transformation in the entire franchise. And I'm not even just counting the heroes in this case, although it definitely is going to be a Super Saiyan transformation for sure. So what exactly is the worst transformation in Dragon Ball Z and probably the entire Dragon Ball franchise? Well, I'm going to be getting into that and explaining in depth exactly why that's my choice and how it compares and contrasts to the other forms in the franchise. So let's get into that right now. So for me, in my estimation, the worst form in the Dragon Ball franchise has to be Super Saiyan Grade 3 or Ultra Super Saiyan. So why exactly is this the case? And why exactly does it in many ways, if not every single way, embody the absolute worst aspects of transformations in Dragon Ball? Well, let's take a look at that right now. First off, we'll take a look at the Super Saiyan Grade 4 itself. Super Saiyan Grade 3 in this case, actually. This would be the Ultra Super Saiyan, as dub fans like to call it. And so basically what happened was during the fight between Vegeta and Cell, after Cell had handily defeated Vegeta with his perfect form, Trunks started to power up into the state which he believed made him more powerful than his father Vegeta overall. I discussed whether or not he really was in another video you could check out on my channel where I talked about that entire subject in depth. Nonetheless, what ended up happening was that Trunks went into this brand new form that he debuted, this new upgraded grade of the Super Saiyan, which took it even further beyond, not like Super Saiyan 3, but in some ways like Super Saiyan 3, the Super Saiyan wall, and going beyond Super Saiyan Grade 2. Wow, that's a lot of the word Super Saiyan in one sentence, I know. I have a great variance when it comes to my dialogue, don't I? But nonetheless, as you guys can keep seeing, Trunks goes to fight against Cell. He's big, he's bulked up, the two of them face off in this awesome shot here that Toriyama created. I love when he has his characters face off in this way, typically with the villain being way taller than the hero, especially if you count these weird feeler things on Cell's head. I don't know. Maybe it's a hat that you could take off. I've seen fan fiction of that. And then you can't unsee it. And Trunks is actually, holding back at first. He's not doing very well against Cell. But once Vegeta is taken away by Krillin, Trunks is able to go all out, as he believes, and starts to power up even more so that Cell can test his perfection. And as we could see right now, this is Trunks' true power. He goes and continues to power up, and everyone thinks that he could do well. However, as we see, Toriyama himself explains the flaws with this form while this is all going on. And we see Goku not only go into Grade 2, but then rev it up another notch, in turn going into the most jacked Goku's ever been, compared to like Ronnie Coleman or somebody on their cycle, and we see him go into his Grade 3, and Gohan says, "This is incredible, you can take Cell easily now." But as we see, Trunks is having a great amount of difficulty with this. He's not able to actually hurt Cell at all because he can't hit a single one of these shots on him. And we see that Goku immediately recognizes the reason why. That it is not something that can win because all of this mass gives him strength, but it ultimately kills his speed. And all the power in the world won't do any good if they can't hit the guy, which is what leads Goku, as we could see right here, to want to try and make Super Saiyan the natural form and stay in it, which is basically the mastering, or the Grade 4 as people like to call it, of the original Super Saiyan form without any of these bulky power-ups that we get. And then Cell still explains it even further, which is that you're still so green. You haven't figured it out. You said you'd show me your true power, but here you are relying on brute force. We see Cell bulk up, and such a transformation is nothing, as you could see he explains, as we then get into him demonstrating even further What good is a transformation that only gives you brute strength? You were a fool. Trunks immediately recognizes that this is why Vegeta chose not to use this form at all, and as a result, he recognizes that he's an idiot, which, I mean, the entire arc has kind of proven that time and time again, and he gives himself the opportunity to retire early at Cell's hand, until, of course, he decides not to do that. So basically, this in-universe is the reason why this form is so terrible compared to literally every other form. That every other Super Saiyan form, including Grade 2, which I'll get into soon, seems to increase your speed along with your power. It seems to be only a greater benefit. But with this, with Super Saiyan Grade 3, it doesn't. Sure, it powers you up and bulks you up, which could be beneficial in very, very limited scenarios, but nonetheless, it's not something that powers you up equally. And speed is such an incredible thing in Dragon Ball that really matters when it comes to fights, because if you could throw one punch for every single one of your opponent's 3 punches, then if you don't hit any of your punches, but your opponent's hitting all of theirs, they're going to wear your energy down, they're going to make it to where they can defeat you. And, a lot of these battles tend to be battles of attrition in Dragon Ball, whereas this form, it uses so much energy just pumping up your muscles, which then can't actually hit anyone, that it makes it completely worthless. Maybe you could hold somebody down and then somebody else could use an attack on them, or maybe, other people could restrain them and then you could punch somebody as hard as you can with this form and defeat them that way. But nonetheless, it's irrelevant because that situation never happens in the story. And because of the complete uselessness of this form when it comes to real combat that we actually see play out, it's completely abandoned after this point. But not even then, this is also the form that actually creates the trend in a lot of ways of Dragon Ball having these new forms that are debuted that ultimately don't work. And this is where we get into the narrative reason why this is the worst form. Because whereas every other form in the franchises I'm going to break down right now had a greater narrative impact, this one had probably the least in terms of anything other than what we see. So let's look at it this way. Going back to the first transformation of Goku turning into the Great Ape or Ozaru. We see that when Goku turns into this form, he's able to free everyone from their trap that they were stuck in Pilaf's castle and destroy it, so that in turn they are able to ultimately win against Pilaf and stop all of his evil plans from coming to fruition. So that form was really helpful in the original Dragon Ball. The next form that we see, we're not counting Kaioken because the fact that, most people don't, but even then that was really helpful. The next form that we see is when Goku becomes a Super Saiyan against Frieza. And this gives him the strength to utterly defeat Frieza, even when he becomes his original 100% power in his bulked up form. So this serves to make it where Frieza cannot defeat the main character, he overpowers him, and it also serves to accomplish the narrative of Goku going from the low-class warrior to the legendary Super Saiyan and the ultimate fighter among his people, and kind of bring his story full circle. Frieza was afraid of the Super Saiyan, and that's part of why he destroyed Planet Vegeta, and then in turn, Goku becomes a Super Saiyan and destroys Frieza. So, perfect narrative right there. As I talked about before, Super Saiyan Grade 2, this one, even though it doesn't stick around, doesn't seem to have any of the real drawbacks that Super Saiyan Grade 3 does, except for maybe stamina utilization or something. I guess that even bulking up his muscles doesn't really slow Vegeta down because we're never told that it does, and he's able to use it to defeat Semi-Perfect Cell, utterly defeat him. It's only because Vegeta gives in to his arrogance that he's not able to win one-on-one in terms of obliterating him. He gives into, the Saiyan weakness of wanting to fight a stronger opponent that Cell himself uses. And, you could think of Cell's transformations or all the villains' transformations too. All of them serve to give our opponents, our characters, our protagonists, a greater obstacle to overcome. Cell becoming perfect, Frieza attaining all of his forms, Vegeta using his Ozaru, all of that accomplishes something in the story. Whereas again, Super Saiyan Grade 3 really doesn't, other than to show them that they need to go down a different branching path. Even Super Saiyan 2, which is the ultimate conclusion of that branching path, ends up defeating Cell, and establishing Gohan as the new protagonist of the story. It accomplishes things in universe and out of universe within the narrative itself. And then we can even talk about, let's say, Super Saiyan 3. Goku goes Super Saiyan 3 when he's against Buu, and as we could see right here, he accomplishes this. Now, in terms of the mainline transformations of Super Saiyan, most people consider this to be the worst, and I could definitely understand that. I definitely think that it is also another form that goes along with that trend, which, Super Saiyan 2 broke temporarily, Combo Breaker, but in this case, Super Saiyan 3, it was a form that Goku was not able to really defeat anyone with. He didn't defeat Fat Buu here. He didn't defeat, Kid Buu using it. He used the Spirit Bomb in that case. He beat Hirudegarn, but even then he beat him because he used a special technique. He beat Fat Janemba, but those are movies. Those are irrelevant within what we're talking about right here. But even then, they accomplish more than Grade 3 for sure. And, Super Saiyan 3 saps a lot of strength. It starts that trend, like I said, of him not defeating any mainline villains with it. Same thing that happens with Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Blue, and so on. But nonetheless, at least, well, I can get into Super Saiyan Blue another time, but nonetheless, it still has more narrative impact because what was Goku's entire point of using this, Toriyama's entire point of really introducing it, other than to make Goku the strongest again, which was to stall Buu. And Goku definitely did that because as we could see when he's fighting against Buu, he starts to punch him back and forth like a toy and keep him at bay for a significant period of time, even when he uses Vegeta's technique. So again, then we can go to Dragon Ball GT with Super Saiyan 4, the best transformation in the franchise as far as I'm concerned, and I talked about that in a video as I mentioned it before. Another cheap plug, bang bang. And anyway, nonetheless, what I said before is that you could say that this had way bigger narrative significance. It turned Goku back into being an adult, which undid the kid thing, at least temporarily, until he goes back into his base form. And then it, helped to defeat Baby. It helped to defeat some of the other villains, or at least push them toward being defeated. So at least it defeated one main villain, whereas obviously Super Saiyan Grade 3 never did. So everything with that combines to show that Grade 3, narratively and in universe, is really the worst transformation in the franchise, and for me, is something that ultimately should just have been called Super Saiyan Trash. Because that's what it is. Super Saiyan Trash. So that's the worst transformation in Dragon Ball Z, and really probably the entire Dragon Ball franchise. You could definitely say what you will about the different forms in Dragon Ball Super, and whether or not a form being created entirely just to make more merchandise and money is worse than a form that accomplishes nothing in the story. That's up to you guys. But you can let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Also, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
And you better subscribe!